And I love how you've led our church in this. Just say, hey, guys, let's all be sharing our faith in Jesus everywhere we go.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we want to do is just make it plain and simple. I think we overcomplicate it. I think for a lot of people, it's very intimidating that, oh my goodness, these people are going to hate me. Let me just give you a really good word for everybody that's listening right now. Let me give you a great word right now, and that is people not only need the Lord, they want the Lord.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to the GrowLeader podcast, where we grow leaders that grow churches by helping them reach their full potential. That's what we're trying to do today, is to help you reach your full potential. Sitting here right next to Pastor Chris Hodges, PC.
How are you?
I'm great.
We just had a great all-staff meeting.
We were talking about it before we started recording, and it's always so good when you get everybody in the room and remind us why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, it was a great discussion, and some of the content that we talked about, we probably should bring on the show someday. It was really, really, really good. And by the way, everybody that's listening, if you ever are in town or want to be in town and just come step into the culture that is Church of the Highlands, probably our monthly all staff might be the best place to do that. We had about 20 pastors in town today that are just checking out our culture, checking out how we train our staff. So anyway, you're all invited. If you're listening to this, come show up sometime. We usually don't just rely on this, but usually last Thursday of every month.
Yeah, and if you want to do that, send us an email, info@growleader.com. We want to make sure we know you're there and that we can host you in the right way. And so let us know that you're coming. Beloved, that I love, and I think for those that are listening, not everybody that's listening is a senior pastor, but for those senior leaders, you do such a great job of making sure that we're keeping the main thing.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk about today, actually, because we're stepping into the summer months. And for me, I don't know about everybody else, but for me, these are the months where I kind of am stepping out of the office hours and the just in the church culture. It gives me a chance to kind of get out into that world. And if I'm going to end up sharing my faith, it seems like most of my opportunities happen beginning about May, June, July, when I'm not so much around the office, a little bit more out in the travel world or maybe hopefully in some vacation time. But I want to talk about today about sharing our faith, because this is GrowLeader, and you grow churches by the first of the four things that we do, and that is we want people to know God. Yeah. And one of the topics we talked about today at our all staff is that we can have this tendency to rely on something else to do the job. I talked about organic discipleship versus just allowing the growth track to do it or the systems to produce everything. And I think when it comes to people finding Jesus and people hearing the good news of the gospel, we think, well, that's the church's job, that's Sunday's job. I don't have to do that. But in reality, one of the best parts of Christianity is sharing your faith, and more people are, let me say it this way, less people are coming to church to hear that good news. Used to, you could just invite somebody to come to church, but studies are showing that more people are never going to dawn the doors of a church, and we still have the responsibility of evangelism, sharing our faith, giving them the good news of Jesus. And today we want to talk about how we do this personally and teach everybody in our church to share their faith.
You have been on just passionate about personal discipleship. We're doing a series right now at the church called Disciple. We talked about discipleship on last month's episode.
Talked about it today in all staff.
Talked about it today in all staff. We're going to talk more about it today in the podcast. What's lit this fire inside of you or reminded you that this is a thing we have to be talking about?
Yeah, it's just a realization that I think sometimes we're relying on the systems that we build to do all the work, when at the end of the day, all Christian ministry, the gospel, pastoring, discipling, mobilizing, serving, giving. You can't lean on a tool or a resource or an event or a system or a growth track. And we've created all those. At the end of the day, it's a person with a person. And what I want to bring us back to is that organic, or the word organic refers to the production of something that's not using artificial means. I even talked about today in the all staff that we have one of the worst, if not the worst, food sources or food production in the world. We have the worst food in the world.
It ain't good for you. That's what we're trying to say.
Well, but what we are good at is producing it at a mass level, and the margins being high. So for the sake of the almighty dollar, we have sacrificed quality. And I've wondered sometimes, if we haven't done that with ministry. For the sake of mass production and margins, we've leaned on systems. When organic, the opposite of what we have is organic food. And organic food is expensive. Organic food doesn't use some of the same artificial agents. In fact, the word literally means something produced without artificial means. And it's just organic. We went back to just in this discussion, just a person with a person. And I'm just stirred on this thought right now.
When you said that, I thought, fast food, we all know that's bad. That's not good for you at all. And I think maybe we try to have fast discipleship
exactly
with people. And the healthier things I eat are usually the things that took more time.
And again, we just rely on the production agent to do it.
Right.
We lean, in this case, we're talking about sharing our faith. We're relying on, that's the church's job. When reality, it's the Christian's job. And I want to talk about it. You cut me, Matt, you know this. If you cut me, I bleed evangelism.
Yep.
I mean, at the end of the day, to me, the most important thing, and everything we do in ministry, I think is important, but the most important thing is getting people into heaven. That heaven and hell are real places. People actually go there, and the Lord has entrusted to us this responsibility. Yeah. In fact, when we teach our membership class, and this is a great for every pastor that's listening, if you don't do this, you're asking, what is one of the things that Highlands did to see the growth and the number of people finding Jesus? It's what I'm getting ready to say, and that is that in every membership class for all 23 plus years now, I personally have shared how to share your faith.
Right.
We teach, and we can teach it in 5 or 10 minutes, how to share your faith. And actually took this outline from Rick Warren years ago, and it's just a great outline. And that is, you have to, number one, accept the responsibility, the personal responsibility. That again, this isn't the church's job, this isn't God's job. This is my job. He entrusted to us, 2 Corinthians says, he entrusted to us the ministry of reconciliation as though God were making his appeal through us. So God is trying to talk to people, and he chose to use his Christians, his followers, to be those mouthpieces. And so this is our responsibility. I always say, you're God's plan A, and he doesn't have a plan B.
Wow.
It's just that we have the ministry of reconciliation. It's our job to get that good message out there. Then the second thing that we do is we develop this personal relationship that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, because I think we're living in an age where there's so much divisiveness. We have lost the art of even having a conversation or a relationship with someone that we disagree with,
right,
or may disagree with us. And I think we need to recapture that a little bit as well, and not just always choosing sides and just getting the bad people as far away from me as possible. So we're going to accept the responsibility. We're going to develop this personal relationship. We'll talk about it today. The third thing is we're going to share our personal story. Acts chapter 1, verse 8 says that we are his witnesses. A witness does not judge. A witness doesn't defend. A witness doesn't prosecute. They simply tell their side of the story. So in the courtroom, you have all these roles: the judge, the prosecutor, the defender, but then you have this witness, and they simply tell their story. So I don't tell you how bad you are and what's wrong with you. I tell you what God's done inside of me. We are his witnesses. And church, every person listening, we've got to get back to creating environments where we have the opportunity to share our story. We'll talk about that a little bit more in this podcast. But then lastly, give them a personal invitation.
Great.
So accept the responsibility. We're going to develop a personal relationship, share our personal story, to give them a personal invitation to Jesus or an invitation to church. But knowing, and what is motivating this topic today, is that a lot of them aren't going to come to church. So we have to recapture and master the art of sharing our faith. And I'm challenging every pastor that's listening to me, and every church leader that's listening to me right now, that you need to put this into a sermon series. You need to put this into part of what you teach from the pulpit. We have to prepare Christians to share their faith. If we're gonna see people find God, it's not gonna just happen in our churches.
Yeah, you were sharing in all staff. If we're just working on making our services great, there's a bunch of people who are never, ever, ever going to see that. And we need to make our services great. They have to be awesome for the people that show up. but we're in coffee shops and restaurants and schools and our neighbors and all that every single day. And I love how you've led our church in this. Just, hey, guys, let's all be sharing our faith in Jesus everywhere we go.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we want to do is just make it plain and simple. I think we overcomplicate it. I think for a lot of people, it's very intimidating that, oh my goodness, these people are going to hate me. Let me just give you a really good word for everybody that's listening right now. Let me give you a great word right now, and that is people not only need the Lord, they want the Lord. Yeah. I had a conversation not too long ago, Matt, with someone, and I was just kind of letting them know I was a pastor. It was a complete stranger, and they stopped me in the middle of me kind of sharing who I am and sharing my faith, and they said, hey, you need to know I'm an atheist. And I said, you know what, I already knew that about you. I said, but don't you miss God? And they said, yes.
Wow.
I do. Which means the person who doesn't believe in God still had this something on the inside of them that said, you know what, I think I do miss him. Let me tell you why. Because we were all, even the lost people, even the people that disgust us, the people that we think couldn't be further from God, even in this culture today, even some of those that we dislike or even, dare I say, hate, still are made in the image of a mighty God. They're just lost souls. I always like to say it this way, and that is everybody on earth is one of God's children. Some of them are found, some of them are lost. And if you've ever lost a child, I actually have lost one of my 5 kids once, and it's the most traumatic experiences of my life. In fact, I think I can still, on record, with great integrity, say it still was the most traumatic experience, 20 minutes of my life, when our youngest of 5 kids, who's on the autism spectrum, was missing. And there's this moment where you think, well, where is he? And then there's this moment where you think, oh my goodness, somebody snatched my child right up from underneath me, and I'll never see him again. And the panic that I had in my heart while I was going through that was, I can't even really describe it, honestly. And we were in this vacation village, it was crowded, and I just knew my son Joseph was gone. And we panicked at a level that I can't even really describe, and ultimately found, I actually was the one, we all went off in 20 different directions to find Joseph, and I was the one that found him. When I saw him, he was crying his eyeballs out, looking side to side, trying to find somebody that he recognized, and I yelled across this crowded vacation village, Joseph, and he ran toward me. Man, my goodness, and I ran toward him, and his shaking, trembling, red-faced, shaking voice said, Daddy, I've been looking for you everywhere. And it said, son, I've been looking for you. And Matt, it changed me. It changed me. And I tell people when I tell this story, there was a never moment when I was looking for Joseph that I thought, you know, I have 4 others.
Right.
I mean, 80%'s not bad. I didn't even really care about the other 4 during that search. Those were found kids. And I was completely obsessed and distracted by the one that was lost. And it makes sense when you read the 3 parables that Jesus taught in Matthew 15 of how he would leave found things to go find the one that's lost. And he tells the story of the lost sheep and the lost coin and then the lost son. But in the sheep case, it's not even good business sense to leave 99 to go find one. Like you cut your losses. And in this story, he said, no, you need to understand, I'm never stopping searching until they're all found. And this is the heart of the one we serve. And I truly believe that what great churches do and what growing churches do is they still have this deep passion for the lost. And we figure out ways to do that with our church services, and we've talked a lot about attractional churches while maintaining the depth and the discipleship that we can give members while we're still creating spaces for lost people to come and say, hey, I feel welcomed here, and that we're winning souls. But I have a deeper burden today that the vast majority of the people, at least in America, are never going to dawn the doors of our churches. And pastors and leaders, if we don't personally live this out and then teach it, that a personal soul winning, it's never going to happen.
Now, I don't know if you know this. When Heather and I, my wife and I, first came to Highlands, 18, 19 years ago, it was a moment in Growth Track where you said, we're a church that exists for the people that aren't here yet.
Right.
Was the moment that we looked at each other and said, and this is our home. Like we're all about this. And so I think even you saying that for pastors to say that in your membership course. Hey, from the start, hey guys, we are looking for lost people.
Yeah, in fact, I go so far to say, if this becomes your home church in this membership class, then I'm asking you to join us in what is the main focus of this church. So we're going to take care of your marriage. We're going to pastor your kids. We're going to have children's ministry. We're going to do camps. We're going to do all this stuff. But at the heart of it, the preeminent ministry of the church is that we're going to do everything we can short of sin to reach people far from God, and I need you to help us. And one of the statements that I make, and pastors, you just use this statement, and that is, so I need you to do what I can't do, and I'll do perhaps what you can't do. And what I can't do is know all your friends. And what you perhaps can't do is share this with your friends in a way where they'll want it. So we made this partnership, like you get them here, I promise you, They'll feel comfortable in that experience so that they can hear the good news of Jesus. But Matt, I have to amend that comment now because we can't just say bring them to church.
Right.
We're going to have to teach our members how to be soul winners.
Right.
And there's 3 things that I focused on in the spirit of simplicity that I want to share with everybody today. And then pastors and leaders, I would love for you to reteach. And I'm talking to every business leader, every mom, dad. You even said before the show began today that, man, I'm not even in that many environments where there are lost people. Well, that's number one. We've got to go out into this world and doing, number one, what I call recognizing the moments that God gives us. So I truly believe that at gas stations, restaurants, gyms, grocery stores, wherever you are, if we'll be just a little bit more in tuned to the people around us, and looking for certain things, not everybody, but looking for people who may be confused, maybe need a friend, look lonely. And I truly believe that God is orchestrating our steps. Psalm 37, the steps of a good person are ordered of the Lord. Proverbs 16, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord is establishing your steps. And I truly believe that God will orchestrate divine intersections, but we have to be looking for them. And so we have to go into this world kind of in tune with anyone who just, might make a comment about their life. I always say, throw out something, ask them a question like, how's it going? Tell me about your family. And 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to hear some level of pain. You're going to hear something that's not right with them. And they'll say things like, man, I've never been more depressed or lonely or angry. And just coming back with a simple phrase with, man, I sure wish you had my peace. Because I go through some of those same things too, but thank goodness I have peace. And then they'll ask you back, why? How do I get your peace? And now they've opened that door. And I can't tell you how many times just simple little statements like that open up the doors for people.
And, we had to do this a while back, reframe our lives in that, hey, this stuff's not just for us. The gym is not just for us. This is a platform for God where we can meet lost people because we're in church all the time.
Exactly.
Little league sports, not just for our kid. This is a chance to see what's going on in some other marriages. Hey, man, you guys doing okay? To notice when somebody's not there after a few games.
Exactly.
Hey, man, we missed you. It's literally leveraging the rest of your life. And God will give you opportunities if you start looking at it that way.
Seems like most of mine end up on airplanes. I don't know why that is. I always say every great preacher story happens on an airplane. But I can't tell you how many times I've sat next to someone who's going through something difficult. And one of my stories that I've told countless times is about a man who just buried his best friend. And he just starts bawling, crying on the plane, saying, I'm never going to see him again. I'm never going to see him again. And I didn't, convict him. I didn't judge him. I simply said, well, I cry too when I lose people, but it doesn't look like that. Well, now I had his attention.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? Okay, I bury my friends too, but I cry, but it doesn't look like this. And of course, I'm paraphrasing 1 Thessalonians 4, where the Bible says, we grieve, Christians grieve, but not like the rest of people. Right. Who have no hope. And so I quote this verse to him. I said, the Bible says that Christians grieve, but it's not like this because we have hope. And he came back with, well, how do you get the hope? And I shared my faith with him. Well, the long story short is this person, I ended up praying with him to receive Christ at the Logan International Airport in Boston, Massachusetts, as I'm heading toward this conversation. This speaking opportunity at a church that I had. But the best part of that trip wasn't even me speaking at this church. It was me sharing my faith with this guy named Billy, who was a businessman from Boston, and he ended up sending me as a gift. I told him don't do this, but he sent me as a gift, Matt, this baseball card because he was personal friends with a Hall of Fame relief pitcher for the Red Sox, Dennis Eckersley. And he goes, "Can I send you this hand-signed baseball card?" I said, "Sure, man, send it." And God be my witness, if you came home to my office right now, at home, on my desk is this baseball card of Dennis Eckersley. And it's my daily reminder, Matt, that I need to go out there and live my life realizing that God is going to put somebody sitting next to me on an airplane or somewhere in my world. I just needed to recognize it and just be available to minister to this person.
I've even heard you say in the past, some of your best messages, they're usually not on stage, they're on the golf course, or they're on an airplane, or they're in a dinner conversation. But I think it's because you've got your eyes open looking at things that way. We have to see life that way.
And we're talking about, this is GrowLeader, right? So how do we grow great churches? We have to teach our people how to do this. This can't be the responsibility of the Sunday service, can't be a responsibility of the senior pastor. What if every Christian in our churches was going out into that mission field called life with their eyes open and just recognizing the God moments? The second one is the meat of it. And I know we only have a few minutes left on the podcast, but the meat of this, it stands in stark contrast to the culture we live in right now. We're in this election year. Man, every time you turn the news on, there's this group hates this group protesting that group. I'm not going to make a commentary on all that. I have an opinion, but it's disheartening to me of how much hate there is and how much disgust that one human can have for another human. And listen to me, every person that's listening to this podcast today, this cannot be us. We have to be the one group of people, with even the people that we disagree with, the people that we are disappointed with, the people that may even hate us, that we're not going to hate back. Number two, we have to refocus on the manner in which we live. The command of Jesus in Matthew chapter 5 is our job is to be salt and light.
Right.
And salt makes something that doesn't taste good taste good. And what light does is take darkness and brightens it up. We make things better, we make things brighter. Let me say it this way, if in any environment, even with groups that you disagree with, if you're not making it better or making it brighter, then you're not doing it the Jesus way.
Wow.
And so we love confrontation now, and my way's the right way, and I'm gonna argue this point. I have never won an enemy to Christ.
Say that again.
I have never won an enemy to Christ, I've only won a friend. And I'm not saying I have to agree, but I do have to accept. So you don't have to be like people to reach people, but you have to like people to reach people. You don't have to be like them, but you have to like them. Let me say that again. I'll even ask myself to say that one again. You don't have to be like them, but you have to like them.
That's great.
You have to have something in your heart that says they still have value. And so how do we do that? Just a few thoughts. We're going to bring only positive news, not negative. For goodness sakes, the word gospel means good news. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing bad about it. There's nothing yelling about it. There's nothing mad about it. No, it's good. It's good news. I was sharing my faith, Matt, not too long ago with a guy, and his rebuttal back to me was, I could never serve a God that sends people to hell. And I said, me neither. I said, that's why I'm so grateful that our God actually sent his son so that you never have to go to hell. So again, just flipping that instead of arguing with a person, sharing that good news. Second thing is we're going to be common ground, not battleground. And again, in this election year, my goodness, we have so many battlegrounds right now, places where I believe this and I don't like that, and we say it and spray it all over social media. Please, I'm begging those of you who are listening, don't be of the group that is always articulating what you're against. Talk about what you're for. We find the common ground. And even with the person that is polar opposite of you with their morals, their values, their politics, you can still find some common ground. This was the genius of the Apostle Paul. In 1 Corinthians chapter 9, to the weak I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some. John Maxwell and I, Matt, I announced it today at our all staff, and our team didn't know yet, but John and I are actually co-authoring a book that we're going to release at the Grow Conference. And by the way, can I just say, I can't believe I'm getting my name on a book that John Maxwell writes, because he's a real author. I'm a pretender, so I've written a few books, but that brother is a real author. And he came to me and said, let's write a book together called Jesus, the High Road Leader. And every part of the book shows how he always brought people together, how he accepted those who were, that were completely different from who he is and what he believed, but that's how he drew them in. And I think it's going to be a beautifully encouraging book right in the middle of this. We're looking for common ground, not battleground. This one's huge. Their perspective, not my perspective. Now, I have a perspective, right, and God knows if you get around me long enough, I'll want you to understand what I understand. But that's not how Jesus operated.
Right.
A lot of people don't know what I'm getting ready to say, that in the Gospels, Jesus asked 307 questions. So if you go through the Gospels, 307 times, knowing the answer, because he's omniscient, he's all-knowing, Jesus went into environments and asked a question to something he already knew the answer of. He was asked 183 questions, and he only directly answered 8 of them. So he asked 307, he only answers 8. So let me say it this way, he was 40 times more likely to listen than to proclaim.
Here's what I want to say about that. Every algorithm you have on whatever platform you're on is designed to reinforce what you already believe, and not designed to help you understand or gain perspective. And I just think during this year especially, the Bible's going to help you way more than whatever platform you're looking at, way more.
Exactly. And we want to be like Jesus, where we don't step into it even though we know the answer. I know the answer.
Right.
I know what they should do differently, and I know what can help them. But what would it be like if we stepped in those environments and said, tell me more. Tell me why you believe that.
Would you just call that humility, though?
Yeah, I think I call it finding common ground that they're going to love.
Yeah.
And then they're going to start asking you they're going to start asking you some questions. When I was a student pastor back in the day, Matt, in Colorado Springs, I don't think they allow this. It's been a long time since I've been a student pastor, but we were permitted by even public schools to go eat lunch with our students, and then our students could invite their friends to that lunch table. Do they allow that anymore? Probably not.
Some systems.
Some systems, okay. And when I got into these environments, I'd have 3 or 4 of the kids that went to our youth group, but then we'd have 6 or 7 or 8 kids that didn't go to our youth group. In fact, they didn't go to any youth group. They weren't a part of any church. And every time I sat there, I'd always ask the same questions. Tell me what you think about church. Tell me what you think about God. Tell me what you think about faith. Tell me what you think about the Bible. And every time, I just let them vent. I let them share their confusion. I let them share even their ignorance. But I asked them questions. I never made declarations. I only asked questions. And in every case, Matt, they would always give a representation of Christianity, church, the Bible, and God that wasn't accurate.
Wow.
And I always came back with, well, I wouldn't be a Christian either if that's what I thought it was. But would you be interested in knowing what the Bible actually says about that?
That's so good.
And one student at a time, they gave their life to Jesus because I stepped into that, again, not proclaiming, but asking. And I'm begging pastors for us to live that way, and then to teach our churches how to step into environments like Paul did in Acts 17 when he reasoned with the Stoics and the Epicureans, and there on Mars Hill, he understood them before he asked to be understood.
Right.
And then the last one is that we're patient, not pressing. And I think one of the things that people that are far from God don't like is to feel pressed. One of my favorite lines to say to someone who's like, I'm not against what you just said, but I need to think about it a little bit more, is I say, well, listen to me. If you ever decide, I'd like to be the first phone call you make. Here's my number. Or if they actually say, I don't want to have anything to do about it, I always say, well, go try it. And if it fails, and it probably will, but if it fails you, if you ever want to come back, I'd like to be the first phone call you make.
So great.
And I've had so many people, family members included, who said, I'm ready to come back. It didn't work. And I call it not pressing them, but always building that bridge for them to come back. So simply, we need to close the podcast, but I want us to recognize the God moments. I want us to refocus on the manner in which we live. And then finally, we relay the message of hope to this broken world. We're going to have to articulate the gospel. And pastors, this is the last thing I would teach you to build a growing, healthy New Testament church. And that is, we have to teach our own people what the gospel is and how to communicate it. I've done a whole message, and we'll put it in the show notes. Yep. Messages where I've taught I think one of the messages I called it, "This is my story." And I talk about how you can weave the gospel into your own personal testimony. And every Christian in our churches should be trained in sharing their faith in 3 minutes or less and including the gospel. We relay this hope to this broken world. I want to read this one scripture, and Matt, I'll let you close out the podcast. But the Bible says in 1 Peter chapter 3, in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord. So settle it for yourself. And the next line says, once you've settled that Jesus is your Lord, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. So the question is, are the members of our church prepared? And if they're not, pastor, leader, this is our responsibility. Every student pastor, this is our responsibility to prepare our people to be able to give an answer for the hope that we have. Watch this. But do this with gentleness and respect. And boy, does that look like
right.
kind of what the world's throwing at people, even some Christians? Not a lot. We do it with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience. In other words, never hating the person. Never having anything in your heart that judges them in some type of way, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior will eventually be ashamed of their slander. And this is it's a Jesus attitude that we put into this book, and we're going to be talking about over the next few months together as we navigate this crazy season that we're in our culture and win a whole lot of people to Jesus.
It's going to be amazing. I'm excited about the book. Cannot wait to get it. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I hope you send that to one of your middle school English teachers at some point. I know
Who gave me a D in English. Yeah.
That's right. Hey, so grateful you're with us today on the Grow Leader podcast. We'll make sure and have all those resources on the show notes for you. To get those, go to growleader.com/podcast. Hope you have an amazing month. We'll see you next time right here on the Grow Leader podcast.
See ya.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And we also want to say a big thank you to all of our partners that help make the Grow Leader podcast happen each and every month. For over 80 years, the Weston Investment Foundation has helped churches with their borrowing and their investing needs. Whether you're dreaming of a new opportunity or seeking wise counsel about resource management, WIF can assist you. You can learn more about them at wifonline.com/growleader. The next is Compassion International. For over 70 years, they have served the most vulnerable children in the world in Jesus' name. Through the power of the local church, they've impacted over 2.3 million children, and they're not stopping anytime soon. Learn more about how you can be a part of what they're doing at compassion.com/growleader. Next is our newest partner, Studio C. Studio C can help you know your people and grow your church. They combine strategy, technology, and communications to maximize church member engagement. You can bridge the engagement gap and transform your church's impact with Studio C. Learn more about them at their website. It's thestudioc.org/growleader.